Bless you. Let's talk about TDD. So what TDD stands for, guys? Test-driven development. Correct. Have you heard about BDD? Something-driven development. Fantastic. That's the best. Behavior-driven development. Yeah. So I know you already did a workshop about TDD. Cool. So today I would like to talk a bit more about that. So first of all, TDD, I don't necessarily believe that having the ability to learn testing, to manipulate tests, will be the difference between getting your first job or not. But there are two things to consider here. For some specific companies, and this one used to be the good ones, TDD is a must. Okay? Companies like Sky TV. Yeah, companies like Sky TV, you cannot join Sky TV if you don't know testing. As simple as that. Yeah? I get contacted from Sky TV from time to time because they are hiring, well, so far I think one person, but it's very difficult to break into Sky. And whenever they ask for people, like, do they know TDD? Are you sure they know TDD? Yeah, they know TDD. They go there and they fail, right? So if you're planning to join Sky, you should do TDD like hell. And the guy who joined Sky, yeah, he really mastered TDD. Now he's getting promoted. So your life is sorted if you join TDD. So long story short. Also, even though if in the short term it is true that unless you want to join a very good company, you don't need the TDD, in the long term, you will need it. It's just a matter of time. So then your ability to make more money quicker will depend on your ability to learn TDD quicker. That's why it's the first time we're running a second workshop about TDD. If that wasn't clear enough, hopefully it is now. And also, I think it's worth to mention that TDD is a huge world. We could do a bootcamp only about TDD. Yeah? So it's impossible to cover all the angles. So I would like to cover at least the most fundamental one. And then I would like to share with you some resources, some links, some keywords about what to do next once you feel comfortable with this approach. Yeah? So today I would like to talk about unit testing, which is the most fundamental sort of aspect of the testing pyramid. I'll talk about the testing pyramid at the end of this session. All right, so let me present you a problem. Imagine that as part of the Codery platform, we want to add a new functionality to evaluate, to check if a student is certified or not. Well, we got that already, but anyway. So, generally speaking, I will create a new component, yeah, called something like student, and I will create a function. So depending on, for instance, how many tasks you've completed on CodeFlix, and depending on whether you've been contributed to the team app, depending on these factors, my function will return a Boolean, true or false. So for instance, if you've completed the first 24 tasks on CodeFlix and you've been contributed to your team app, then you get the blue tick. Yeah? This is a simplified version of the reality, but I hope that works. So, whenever we want to deal with a new component, TDD means test-driven development. That means that the first thing we should do is to write the test. That's a bit mind-blowing. If you think on classic industries, imagine the car industry, right? The Germans building BMWs and stuff like that. You know the Euro NCAP. Euro NCAP is that sort of European mechanism that tests how safe cars are, right? So how it works? First of all, the manufacturers, they build the car and then they test if the car is safe enough, right? They crash the cars against a wall and things like that, right? With TDD, it works on the other way around. First of all, we test the functionality that doesn't exist and then we build it. So on the Euro NCAP system, we will have to crash a car that doesn't exist yet. Yeah? So that mechanism doesn't really apply to hardware, to physical stuff. But in software, it really works. Yeah? And on top of that, it's important to know that you are not going to like TDD. You are not going to be happy with it. But don't worry. I'm not asking you to be happy with TDD. With React, the first day you saw it, I told you, this is really good, it's the future, learn it. And hopefully you really grasp that idea and just start enjoying dealing with React. TDD is different. No one really likes TDD the first time they see that, right? But in the long term, it's vital. And there will be one day in your life where you will really fall in love. And it will be awkward not to do TDD. So not liking TDD is not a valid reason not to use it. So just use it. Just use it. One day in your life, you'll realize how convenient it was. But until that happens, still use it. You know, like when you were a kid, and your parents told you need to eat a lot of vegetables, and you didn't really like it, but they really eat vegetables, and hopefully one day when you become an adult, you realize that it was a good idea to eat vegetables, even if you don't like it, or maybe you like it. So with TDD, something a bit similar, right? You must do TDD. And because of a reason, even some senior developers, I've been interviewing dozens of senior developers with 15 years of experience, and then came to the company where I was working for, and I was the person who interviewed them. And then it's always the same thing. It's like, do you like TDD? Oh yeah, TDD. Do you follow TDD principles? Yeah, of course. All right, let's prove it. You now do TDD. And then many of them fail, yeah? Many of them fail. I strongly believe that was the main reason why I got hired by Skype, because I was really good at TDD. And that was very unusual. Yeah? I struggle even to speak English when I joined Skype. Yeah? But I was really good at TDD. And that was very, very good. I've written 8,000 tests in my life, so a lot. All right.
Can I just ask, if you don't do TDD and you deploy and it's live and it's working, then don't you know that way that it's working? Why do you need to do TDD? For example, we're doing conflicts and we're doing everything and we go onto localhost and it's working. We haven't done TDD yet.
Yeah.
Can you just explain why?
So the thing is, conflicts is working. Yeah. It's true. But how can you prove it's working on every single scenario? In other words, imagine that as part of your team app, you are creating a login mechanism. Yeah, I know some of you are doing that, and you know I will complain massively, but that's a separate story. So you are creating a login form, and users have to introduce their email address, and you've been playing a bit with it, and you validate the email address, and you said it works. But can you prove that it works with every single email address in the world? Clearly not. So it works with some scenarios, with some emails that you figure out, yeah, but it may not work with other corner scenarios. And on top of that, it works today. But are you going to prove that functionality works every time you do a change in your platform? Even if it works today, it may break tomorrow, or even worse, in 6 months' time. That's the main thing, yeah? So TDD has many advantages. I would tell you 3. First of all, it prevents from introducing unexpected errors in your platform. Not today, because yes, you are right, today you play with your features and it's all good, right? It works. But you are not going to continue testing all your features every single day you add a new feature. It doesn't scale. So this is an automatic process to verify the quality of your platform. Again, is this rocket science? Of course not. You cannot test all the emails in the world, right? So it's not rocket science, but it definitely helps. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2 is, and actually that's the very, not sure if the most important one, but very, very important, it ensures your code is simple enough. Let me rephrase that. I've been working with many people struggling to create tests for their code. Why? Because they created the code and then they added the tests. If your code is complex, it will be almost impossible to test. Because testing is complicated. Testing is more difficult than coding. If you do TDD, it's on the other way around. You first of all do the test, and then you write the logic associated to that particular test. Nothing else, nothing more. Yeah? So if you have a good coverage, we'll talk about code coverage afterwards, that implies, sort of, that your code is simple enough. And I hope you agree with me that the simpler the code is, the better. Reason number 3 of doing testing and coding, and TDD in particular, is about documenting your code. If you remember some weeks ago, I told you that I'm not a big fan of comments on the code because of multiple reasons. They get out of date, they didn't reflect reality, they are stupid the majority of the time, blah, 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 blah. The way you should really document your code is by writing tests. In other words, if you're in a company and you find a new component called sexy.js with many lines, the way to understand what sexy.js is go to a test, hopefully nearby in the same folder, called sexy.test.js. And that test will describe the reason, the behavior, and the logic associated to that component. Okay? All right, so let's create our first test. First of all, I want to, as I said, prove if a student is certified or not. So imagine I have a new component called student.js. And as part of my student.js, so I want to have a function that returns true or false, right? Depending on your data model. So first of all, as I said before, I got a student.js. So the next thing I will do is to create another file, student.test.js. So you see, I got 2 sibling files, one with the source code, one with the test. Historically speaking, back in time, 10 years ago, we used to have the src folder and then another sibling test folder. That's very smelly today. If you land on a project that they have src folder and test folder, it means they haven't migrated to modern file structure over the last 10 years. The reason is, files that change together should stay together. If I change my code on the student.js, the test should change as well. Yeah? So keep them together. Keep them together, right? All right, so I got 2 empty files, student and the test. So let me present you how I like to arrange these 2 files. Again, this is very personal, yeah? So today, I think it's a combination of industry standards and then personal feelings. So now, this is a personal feeling. The setup I've been using for more than 10 years to do TDD is, so what do we do first? Do we do first the test or the source code? The test, correct. So then, look, I'll snap the test to the left and I'll snap the code to the right, yeah? Because when you are reading a document, you read it left to right, generally speaking, right? Not right to left. So test on the left, code on the right. And then at the bottom, you got the terminal. Because on the terminal, we are going to run the test. So, first of all, let's start the test server. So to start the web app server, we use npm start or npm run start. To start the tests, in this create React application, we can type npm run test. And once we do that, let me show you. It fails. But hey, that means that, the test server is running. Your test suite must contain at least 1 test, which makes sense, right? We got a test file, which is empty. That doesn't make sense. All right, so let's iterate. Let's create our first test. How do we create a test? you type, oh, sorry, it's a bit weird. Be careful, sometimes VS Code tries to be very smart and autocompletes things. So you type IT, yeah? And then you pass the title of the text, and then you pass a callback function, like that. That's the structure of a text. I think it's worth to mention that there are different approaches in regards to the semantics. And they slightly change. So depending on the circumstances, you can see some people writing it, some people writing test. Once again, it depends. Same thing with the matchers, as we'll see in a minute. So this is not rocket science. Depending on the environment, the syntax may change, but it's all about details. Yeah, the important thing is to get the idea about how to write tests. All right, so look, I'm going to create a test, and the title of my test will be it returns false if student is not provided. So I'm just, as you can see, explaining and telling my audience what my function is doing, right? So now, the idea is to create the assertion, and the assertion is expect, again, wrong autocomplete, expect, parentheses. We here invoke the function, so the function is going to be called is student certified, and now to be what? True or false? Why true? False. Returns false if, yeah, this is what our test is asserting. Yep. So that will be our first test. Will the test pass or not? Of course not. The function doesn't even exist. Yeah? And the test fails. Reference error. Is student certified is not defined. But that's normal. That's the way TDD works. You're failing all the time. So you fail, and then you fix the issue. And then you fail, and then you fix the issue. Yeah? That's the way TDD works. All right. So let's fix that issue. So we need to import the function, right? Import is student certified from student. Will it work now? Why not? Correct. The function doesn't even exist yet, right? So you will see in a minute. It fails. Yeah? Student certified is not a function. All right. So let's create the function. Let's move to the right. Function is student certified. Will it work now? Why not? Correct. We haven't exported it. Correct. Export default. Will it work now?
Yes.
All right. So Max.
Well, the function is there, but it won't turn false.
All right. Look, because I'm zooming that screen a lot, right? That's why it's hard to see. Let me drop that to the bottom. Maybe that hopefully will be slightly more readable, right? So will it work, yes or no? Yes and no, that doesn't make any sense. The tests are deterministic. Either they pass or they don't pass. Why not?
Because it's not going to output false. It's just going to be undefined.
Ah, I love that, Sarah. Look, failed. Why? You see? Say it again? Of course, we'll go back in a minute. Yeah, of course. First of all, let's try to understand the situation, right? Expected false. We expect our function to return false, but it returns undefined. If the function doesn't return anything. All right. So, if I do that, will it work? Let's have a look. You're right, guys. The test pass. So that means that iteration is complete. So we can move to the next test. So let me add a new test. It returns false if a student has not completed task 24 on Codeflix. Right? So in this particular case, I'm going to pass an argument, which is an object with the user details. And I'm going to pass a task property called Codeflix, and imagine that the student is on task 23. Will this work?
Me waiting for YouTube to catch up. Yeah, we'll be the same. Wait.
Let me show you. So some people say yes will work, some people say yes won't work.
Yeah, it will. Oh yeah, it will be the same. It doesn't matter what the input is, isn't it? You're just returning false every time.
If you add a new test and the test passes, that test is bullshit. What is it testing? Nothing. TDD means you add a test, you break it, and then you fix it. The problem is not that the test is wrong. The problem is at this stage the code is wrong, because the code is anticipating too much. Yeah? So that test should fail. And to make that test fail, we need to work on the code. So we receive student, so then we can say return. We do something like that. If I don't have any student, return false. Will it work now or not? Will the test pass? The second test will pass? It won't pass? Do you agree with Max or not? Why will the second test fail, Max?
Well, we're expecting it to. We're expecting a number, and that must be more than 24, yes? So if we put it 23, it should fail.
And if I put 29, will it work? Do you agree on that?
No.
Why not? So what will the function return in this scenario? Undefined, that's correct, Sarah. Even if the student has completed 229 tasks, our algorithm will say that person is not valid for the market yet, right? Which is good, because we are doing TDD. We want the test to fail. You see? Fail, because once again, we expected false and we return undefined. So let's fix the test. Back to 23. How do we fix the test? Well, we can add a condition. If I don't have a student, or student what? Let's complete this line. Dot Codeflix is greater than, so according to Max is greater than 24, like that? Greater or equal to 24. So according to Max's algorithm, you are certified from the first day, but once you complete task number 24, you are not certified anymore. So what's wrong here? Should be less than, right? If I don't have any student, or the student I receive hasn't completed task 24, then return false. So now it works. Yeah? Now it's all good. Fantastic. So let's add a new condition. And the new condition will be returns false if a student has completed task 24 on Codeflix, but has not collaborated on the team app. Yeah, you get my point, right? So let's assume that he or she has completed task number 24, but team app flag is false. So will the test pass now? The test will pass.
Yeah.
All right, so the test will pass means that each student certified will return false. Is that right? Do you agree on that? Are you sure?
No.
Why not?
I think it'll pass because there's no reference to the team app.
Yeah.
So the only condition is if the student is falsy, and then or if their score is below 24, it will fail. But there's no reference to the team app.
Yeah.
So then what happened? Will the test pass, yes or no? If the answer is no, you need to tell me what we expect and what the function returns.
I think we're expecting conflicts to be truthful. We're expecting team app to be false. We're going to put team app in the function.
It's going to return undefined.
If you realize, essentially, I'm asking the same question, and only Sarah is giving me the right answer all the time, right?
It's always undefined.
The answer is always, it returns undefined, right? I mean, look at the algorithm. Do I have a student? Yes, so that condition doesn't satisfy. Is that truthy? Wrong. No. If the task is 24, is 24 less than 24? Not generally speaking, right? So, because this is false, and this is false, will it ever jump to that line? No, it will skip it. So what will the function return? Undefined. Is undefined the same as false? No. So that will fail. If we scroll down, do you notice that it's the same error all the time? Just with false, it will return undefined. Yeah? So that's not right. Which is good, once again, because every time with a new test, it should break the app. It should break the test. If a new test doesn't break anything, that test is pointless, right? So that's good. All right, so now, what's next? Let's fix the test. All right. So, what do we need to change here? Less or equal. Of course, yeah. But I don't want to change the algorithm. So whatever is there, is there. I don't want.
You need another conditional statement.
Correct. Or what?
Team false. Yeah.
That?
No, it's going to be false.
Like that?
No. You could do like an exclamation mark team there. I think that might be false.
Like that? Two piece, sorry. Like that? So will it work? Ah. So do you hear what Simon just said? Team up. What is team up?
Oh yes, student dot team app.
Yeah, student, of course, right? Student dot team up. So you can do that, or you can do equal false, right? I think personally I prefer that. Simpler, right? So will the test pass? Yes or no? And if not, once again, what is expected and what is returned?
Gonna pass and return false.
So you think, Sarah, it won't pass?
No, wait.
It will?
It will pass the test, yeah, because it's going to return a false.
Does anyone think the test won't pass? Clarissa, you don't feel comfortable? Say it again? You think it passed? No. All right. Okay, fine. It doesn't pass. So what do we expect and what the function returns? If it don't pass, it's because there is a mismatch. So what's the mismatch? So what do we expect? Correct. We expect the function to return false. If you think the test won't pass, it's because the function will return something different to false. So, fantastic. So, what is the value that you think the function will return? Undefined, okay? Okay, undefined, fantastic, fantastic. So if it's undefined, that means all the conditions here fail. So that's not satisfied at all. Let's see which condition fail. I mean, we're using the OR operator, right? With the OR operator, that means that, yes, if one of the expressions is true, is truthy, it will go inside, right? So let's see if we find any truthy expression. Is the first condition truthy? No, why not? Simon?
I'm not sure why, but all of them are undefined.
All of them are undefined.
Get out.
That sounds very aggressive.
Oh, the last one we just wrote.
So it means if all of them are undefined, it means it's undefined.
Okay? So, can anyone tell me, student? Ignore the exclamation mark. It's a student. What's the value of a student?
So that
It's an object, correct. Are objects truthy or falsy?
Truthy.
Truthy. So, if we negate it, falsy, correct. So that means that the first expression is not going to help us to go into line number 3, right? No problem at all. Let's have a look to the second expression. What's a student.conflicts? What's the value?
24.
24. Is 24 lower than 24? No. So that's false. So, yeah, we're still not going inside of the if expression. So now it all depends on the last one. So what's the value of a student.tmap?
False.
Right? It's false. What happened when we negate false? It's true. False or true returns? True, correct. So that is truthy. So then we go to line number 3. So we return false. So the test pass. That's correct. The test should pass. Let's have a look. That's correct. The test pass. Yeah? Let me tell you something about semantics. I hate something many developers do, and it's considered a standard, and I hate the standard, to be honest. And I had to disagree with that standard. So you will see the majority of developers, they do that. Should return false. Should return false. Should. Yeah. That's horrible. Correct. If you said should return, ideally, Alice in Wonderland, like you are not really sure what you are doing. A test is bold. A test is deterministic. You cannot be half pregnant. Or you are pregnant or you are not pregnant. Right? So that's the same problem. Test should or should not. Test must return. Must. Bold. Yeah? Or if you don't want to type must all the time, simply, hey, it returns. That's it, right? That's it. Without hesitation. It just works. Yeah? Again, that's a very personal touch, but I really hate typing should. All right, so these two conditions are okay. Let's think positively. Let's prove the happy path. You know, the happy path is when everything is okay, right? So let's see what happened. Let me copy that. When user satisfies those conditions, return true if a student has completed task 24 on conflicts and has collaborated on the TMAP, right? So will now the test pass? Yes or no? No. Why not? Correct. Will line number 3 be ever executed?
No, it won't.
No. Correct. So what will our function return? So I've asked the same question 3 times, and only Sarah gave me the right answer. Let me ask the same question by the 4th time. Sarah, what will the function return now?
Undefined.
It's always the same thing, guys, again, again, and again. Because it will never stop here, the function will return nothing. In other words, it will return undefined. So the test will fail. Or should fail. Must fail, right? That's interesting. The test is passing, so that means that I did something wrong. That's unexpected. That test shouldn't pass, right? So let me see if it's because it didn't refresh. That sometimes happens. So let me add a dummy change, just a break line, to force the test pass again. You see? Right.
Could you explain why it's undefined?
Well, easy. Let me create a new function. Function Joshua. Function. What the function Joshua returns?
Nothing.
In JavaScript, what's the technical way to describe nothing? Undefined. If your function returns nothing, that means that your function returns undefined. That code, Joshua, is the same as this code. Yeah? If line number 3 is never executed, technically speaking, the function returns nothing, returns undefined. Okay? So once again, as you've seen, my idea was right. It's just sometimes the test struggle to refresh. In theory, the test rerun as soon as you stop typing, right? But you know, sometimes.
Okay. Now, my question was, why does that function returns undefined?
Well, because line number 3 is never executed.
So why did it never execute?
Well, if it never runs, you tell me what the function returns. Monday, Tuesday, Friday, January. What is the? Is there any other return statement? Is there any else? There is.
Okay.
That code never runs, right? Well, this code never runs. That line that never works, right? According to this criteria. Because this is falsy, this is falsy, and this is falsy. Falsy or falsy or falsy is falsy, right? So that will never run. There is no return statement in this particular scenario. If there is no return statement, we got undefined. And undefined is not the same as false. All right, so how do we fix the problem? How do we make this test pass? Another condition. What's the other condition?
If student, or I don't know.
Well, I don't want to type if again. There is a much simpler way to solve the problem.
I'll just write return true underneath that.
You can do return true, that's fine, or I personally prefer that style. It's a bit more elegant, in my opinion. If any of this condition is satisfied, it's not certified, return false. Else, that means if we're still alive, because you know as soon as we return something, the function is over. So if that's not true, that means we have a student and CodeFlix is okay and the user has participated in the team app and return true. So will the test pass now or not? Once again, if your answer is no, what are we expecting and what is the function returning?
The function will return true, but we expect to be false.
I like what someone said, right? So look, the description of the test is right, returns true, but what happened on line number 20? Correct. Copy paste, right? Let's fix that. So now, hopefully, the test will pass. Let's have a look. Here you go. You see? and we got the details of all the passing tests. Does it make sense? All right. Cool. So, a few more things. Guys, I know we're a bit out of time, but we are not going to do any other workshop about TDD, so I think it's worth to keep talking about this. I'm not going to change my student.js, so let's assume that's it, but I would like to refactor this code a bit. How many, ignoring that sort of default case, when you don't have any students, assuming we got a student, how many possibilities, how many scenarios, how many combinations do we have? So we check what happened if conflicts is below 24. We check what happened if conflicts is about 24, but team up is false. We check what happened on the happy path. Is there any missing scenario here? Say it again, Max?
Based on that, there are 4 scenarios, and below 24 or above are the true or false. So,
Or do they exist? So there's 3 scenarios.
There is 3, but is there any missing scenario here? Have we ever checked what happened if it turns 3? No,
You don't pass the student in. Or
no, if we don't pass a student, that's like
you have that.
we have that. But what happened if team up is true, but conflicts is wrong? Have we contemplated this scenario? Is there any test proving what happened if team up is true but conflicts is false? No. No. That's the beautifulness of testing. You can cover all the angles. You can attack the problem from all the different perspectives. Yeah? So to me, this test coverage is not completed. Because we have 4 possibilities. We have 2 variables. 2 variables, right? So if we have 2 variables, how many combinations we have? 2 power 2. You have 4 combinations. True, 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 false, false, true, false, false. Does it make sense? It's pretty obvious, right? If we had 3 conditions, like conflicts, team up, and board challenges, how many tests will we need to run? 9? Why 9?
No.
8, that's correct, Joshua. It's 2 power 3. True, 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 false, false, all the combinations, right? That doesn't mean we need to check all the possibilities on conflicts. That's number 1, that's number 2, no. But we need to check all the corner cases. What happens if conflicts is okay or not okay? So when I mean true, it's not only talking about booleans, it's talking about condition satisfied and condition not satisfied. In this particular case, again, ignoring the first case, we need a new test. Yeah? And also, before doing the new test, I would like to complete that one, right? Because to me, the last 2 are perfect, because we compare these 2 properties, but this one, trying to be completely correct, we should add what happened, right? So this is the most unhappy path, for example. Return false if the student has not completed task 24 on conflicts and has not collaborated on the team app. So which scenario is missing, guys? We got 3 out of 4.
True.
That's correct. 23 and true, right? So the moment we got false, false, true, false, true, true. But where is false true? It's nowhere. So let's add a new possibility. Returns false if a student has not completed task uniform conflicts and has collaborated on the team app. You see? So now we got all the possibilities covered. And of course, let's make sure that still works. Say it again, Lisa. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah, it's my fault, guys. I told you I'm not very fit today. Team app, not team app, right? So once again, let's make sure it works. It's all good, right? Cool. So that's the way you do the test. Technically speaking, I wouldn't be happy with that neither. Why? Because, as you can see, we got the same type of tests. So it's this the same mechanism. We call a function, we pass some data on it, and then we expect some return statement. Whenever you got that, you can apply a very sexy technique, which is called test rolling. So test rolling means, look at how sexy this is. I can create an array of tests. Look. Let me start with the first one. I set up the title. It's an array of objects, right? Then student, in the first case, is going to be undefined, and then expected. So look at what I'm doing. I'm essentially creating an array of scenarios, right? So I will now copy one by one all the others, more or less, right? So let's make sure we copy the right information. So we copy the student details, right? So let me remove this because otherwise it would be a bit hard to follow. And then if conflict is not okay, but the team app is okay, so let me copy that as well. And on the other way around, if conflicts is okay, but the team app is not okay, so then I can put the title on it. And finally, the happy path, if both conditions are satisfied. This is the last test, right? Oh, I copied the wrong thing. Sorry, let me copy that again. Here we go. All right. So the reason why I'm doing this is because that helps to read the test. You can easily see if you are covering all the scenarios. You see, I got an array of tests. This is the way I can document my snippets. I can clearly see all the possible combinations of data. So now, we got an array of objects, fantastic. But then what else? Well, we need to add the test. This is an array, right? I hope you agree with me. So we can use for each. And then we got what we call the scenarios. We can call it however we want. And here, we need to change a couple of things. So, first of all, the test itself. So can anyone tell me what's the title of the test now? What do I put here? Test scenario like that? That won't work. Variable test scenario is not defined. This is not about testing, guys. This is about beginner JavaScript. So if I have an array and I want to access the it property, correct, scenario.it. Sarah is going to recommend you her the breakfast she takes every morning, right? Because she's very active. All right, it's scenario.it. And then here, what do we put here? Two. or 3? Or 4? 4, right? Or 44? Or 4044? Why? Where's that coming from? Student certified, we are passing the argument, which is the student details. So how do we get the student details out of the array of objects? I got time, that's fine. The question again is, I want to make sure my test pass, right? All my tests pass. So I need to complete line number 30. What is missing on line number 30?
Can you scroll up a bit?
This is not about testing, guys. This is once again about beginner JavaScript. I got an array of objects. You saw how to access the title of the test. So how do, yeah, Simon, go for it.
Student.
Where? Here or here? Left or right? The scenario.student.
Oh, yeah.
And then anyone else apart from Simon and Sarah, what do we put here? True. All right, I think you will need to watch this workshop like 40,000 times this weekend, guys, I believe, right? Because I feel you are completely disconnected from what I'm talking about. Of course, it's not true, right? Test won't pass. With true, it will only pass the last test because it's the only one that returns true. It's not true. Should it be false? Will it work with false? Let's see if it works with false. It doesn't work with false neither, right? One of them failed. What if I pass Jeremy Corbyn? Will it work?
No.
Probably it won't work neither, right? Say it again? Scenario.tmap.
No, not expected.
Scenario.tmap. All right, let's have a look. Wrong. Our scenario, can anyone tell me the properties that our scenario object has? The keys. How many properties our scenario object has? 3. Which ones? It, student, and expected. Correct. So, expected. Once again, there is nothing about testing right now. I'm just looping over an array of objects. So then for each object, I can access the individual properties. And that will hopefully, oh, okay, that may not be refreshed. So let me try again. All right, why it doesn't work? Again, because of the copy and paste. Is that assertion correct? What happens if you are on task 24 on conflicts or on the team application? Should it be true or false? Should be true, right? Again, that was wrong because I just copy and pasted from the previous test. So once we change that, hopefully all the tests will pass. Here you go. Yeah? So now it's all good. Any questions so far?
So is this all being done with enzyme and jest?
No. Don't make it more complicated.
Oh, okay.
I'll talk about enzyme and yes later on. This is just pure JavaScript unit testing.
Oh, really?
Oh,
So
so
you
it's
didn't
built
have to
into
install anything to do this? This is
Well, all right. So the test itself, there is nothing about React here, right? Things like
Oh.
enzyme, yes, they are about React.
Oh,
So this is just JavaScript. And it runs because when we install Create React App, Facebook installs some tools to enable testing. That's why it's so easy. You don't need to config, you don't need to set up anything. It just works, right? Yeah, of course it's cool. You don't have any excuses to not to start testing now, right? It's zero config. All right, so this is what we call TDD, yeah? This session has two goals. First of all, to make sure that you understand TDD, and the second goal was to make sure you understand how important TDD is. I believe that the first goal has not been satisfied because you feel a bit lost, but at least, hopefully you know how important this is. Yeah? So I'm not expecting you to understand this workshop. I'm expecting you to do as much as necessary to understand it, even if it's today, next week, or next year. I don't mind, right? Okay, so this is TDD. Couple of things. This starts looking good to me, personally speaking. Couple of things. So we know the it method, right, or test method. Generally speaking, when we create a test, we can create like a test title. In other words, at the moment, if you look at the logs, you see what we got all the tests with the green tick, all good, right? But what happened if we got 5,000 tests? That's not a weird scenario, right? Many products, they have thousands of tests. It will be a bit weird just to have a plain list of 5,000 ticks. So you can create like a header, like an HTML header. So for each bunch of text, you can specify the context. And how do we do that? Look, you can add another function called describe. So when you put describe, this is like the test title. The same process, right? You got first of all the title, and then inside of it, everything else. So I'm just wrapping everything inside of the describe block. All right, so now here you can pass the title. So what's the title? Some people like to be technical driven, so they, for instance, they refer to the name of the function you are testing, student. Some people like to be a bit more business driven, and they like to call it student component. It doesn't really matter, right? The important thing is to have a header, a title. And what's the impact of that change? The impact is, look, you see? Now we got that header. It's just a subtle detail, but when you have, imagine you have 5,000 tests, and because of whatever reason, after changing something, you break something you did 4 months ago. You can see the failing test, but it will be a bit challenging to find where the test is. This is very common when we do the light time saving, the time change, right? In winter and summer. Some developers, they struggle to manage dates. And if you do some type of assertions with dates, test may work today, but then what? Then on the 31st of March, the test will fail. And that's annoying, to come to the office on the 1st of April and see that a test that someone wrote 7 months ago or 5 months ago, now it doesn't work anymore. All right, so it's really good, it's really important to deal with the semantics. And one more thing, let's talk a bit about BDD. So this is completely technical driven, right? You expect, you get a function, you blah, 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 blah. I told you before that depending on the testing environment, you can see it or test. There are other subtle differences. So for instance, here you got to be in one word. You may see also to.b. Yeah? Again, I hope you agree it's easy to understand one or the other, right? Two dialects of the same language. On the TDD platform, we use to be, right? But anyway, that's not that important. Let's talk about BDD. The goal behind BDD, and actually I think that sounds very romantic. I never had any sort of positive outcome out of that idea, is to make sure that not only developers on the company understands the test, but also business. In other words, if your business analyst wants to understand part of the application logic, he or she can check the test and then they can understand how the application works just looking at the test, right? To me, that has never worked, but hey, maybe you're lucky enough and you work with a very talented business analyst that can do that. All right, so the way we simplify the tests, or to make them a bit easier to read, is by creating some sort of a structure. You may have heard about that, like arrange, act, assert, or the AAA. Arrange, you prepare the test, act, take an action, assert, then what's next, right? Or you may have seen people calling them given, when, then. It doesn't really matter, yeah? I personally prefer this one, but probably because I'm used to that one, yeah? So I'm not very opinionated here. So given. So given is where we prepare the test. And the syntax is something like that. The setup, the data model. So I can create a variable. Let student equals scenario.student. Yep. When the action, right? Let result equals is student certified. Of course, because I created a variable, I just want to use it, right? And then, finally, result to be scenario.expected. It's the same, right? I haven't changed any logic. I just restructured the test a bit. Given, when, then, arrange, act, assert. Even if you code for yourself, if you are not planning to share your code with any non-technical person, I believe that this is a good technique. I always use it, right? To me, it helps me to follow the test. Yeah? All right, so any questions? No? So technically speaking, the workshop is over. I would like now to, first of all, invite you to repeat the exercise, yeah? So do the same thing. Create a new file, student.js, and play a bit with different scenarios. Also, as I told you before, I would like to talk a bit about the testing pyramid. I always struggle to draw that. So imagine that I will probably give up of trying to do this. Right? You see, you get the idea of the pyramid, right? You know, when you want to get a healthier lifestyle, and you check which sort of food you want to eat, and then you see the vegetables, you know these things, right? Olive oil, Spanish olive oil, all these things, right? So, how the pyramid looks like, and I have to say that this is changing over time. Yeah, so there is. If you check on the internet, there may be some variations, but I will give you the whole picture about what the testing pyramid is. So what we did today is essentially, yeah, again, this is a bit controversial. We did unit testing. It's not really at the bottom, as you can see. So there is something at the very before, at the bottom of that, which is linting. It's a sort of testing as well. So when we talk about linting, this is the elegance console on the Contidy platform. Semicolons, that's the first line of defense, right? Linting. Also TypeScript. We'll see that next week. Why is at the bottom? So what that represents? So that pyramid represents a couple of things that are intrinsically related. So this is based on two reasons. One, number of tests, and two, speed of running tests. It's related, right? The more it takes to run a test, the less tests you are going to have. So linting that's the base of everything, right? Why? Because that's something we'll see next week with TypeScript. You are adding types all around. You have thousands of linting rules, right? Unit, still at the very bottom as well. With unit test, you can quickly, you see tests run very fast and everything, right? And then, talking about React, let me even talk about technologies and keywords. So linting, I'm talking about things like ESLint and things about TypeScript. So when talking about unit tests, the keywords here are essentially Mocha or Jasmine. They are equivalent. I believe Mocha is a bit more popular. And also you can think about things like Sinon or Sinon. This is a mocking library to fetch, to mock things like fetch HTTP request. If you are working on task number 24, you are fetching data from the backend, right? In a unit test, we don't call the backend to the actual backend, right? We mock, we stuff, we simulate that request. All right. So yeah, I need more more rows in this pyramid. So we got unit test, and then we got component testing. This is about React. Actually, that's exactly, or let me rephrase that. Unit testing is what you do in JavaScript in the TDD platform. Component testing is what you do on React on the TDD platform. Still is sort of unit test, and actually I'm sure now it will become more familiar, right? On the left-hand side, it's sort of unit test, but we test the components. And the difference is we simulate user interaction. You've seen that on intermediate training, right? User clicks, hover, all these things, right? And here, there are two keywords. One is enzyme, and another one is jest. This is what we've done today, actually. Enzyme and jest. Technologies, right? Again, I'm not going to explain the details. Just go to Google afterwards, just to give you the direction. And then, something else. There's a very, very, very nice new tool here. They got recently an investment of $9 million to continue working. And this is about functional testing. So functional testing means opening a real browser and clicking around. Yeah? Do you know the CAPTCHA button on websites? Prove you're a human. So this is supposed to prevent from using the sort of robots to go through websites. Functional. You create a robot to click on your application. Yeah? But be careful. When we talk about functional testing, we don't attack a real application. We have some sort of fake database, fake backend. So in here, we essentially just click around, use UI, but in a real browser. Component testing, everything is fake. You don't open a real browser. With functional, you see an actual browser coming up and then you click on it. Yeah? So the very nice tool, and I've been using it for a while and really love it, it's called Cypress. It's a huge step ahead. Historically speaking, to do functional testing, you had to install desktop software, like WebDriver, Selenium, things like that. Not anymore. Cypress, just npm install, and then you can quickly create tests. If you go to the Cypress website, you will see some examples really good, right? You can even do drag and drop, so it's very powerful. On top of that, we got something called end-to-end, or also called integration testing. Again with Cypress. That's the same thing. It's literally the same thing. The only difference is in here, you don't mock any backend. You attack real application, right? You really check your APIs, you do all these things, right? And the last one, and this is the newest one as well. So companies are unlikely to use this one. companies are unlikely to even know that thing exists. I introduced that tool at HSBC like 3 years ago. And this is actually HTML and CSS training. This is what we call visual or CSS regression. It's on top of the pyramid. Why? All these layers are sort of technology dependent. Depending on whether you're using React or Angular, that will have some impact on the way you test. But this one is technology agnostic. The way it works is, now you've visited your website, your web application, and it's all good. It works. So you take a screenshot, literally. It's a screenshot. Yeah? You save an image, a PNG in your system. So now, every time you commit and push, essentially, you take a new screenshot. So then you compare them. Yeah? If by mistake you change the background color of your app from white to pink, it's pretty much impossible to detect that CSS issue with all these layers. But with visual regression, because we're comparing pictures, yeah, the test will complain. Of course, maybe you did the change on purpose, right? But if that's the case, once the test complains like, hey, the background of your web app was white, now it's pink, you have the option to say, yeah, that's a genuine change. I did it on purpose. And starting from that time, the new reference image will be the pink one. Yeah? So that's CSS regression. And the tool here is called, thank you, backstop.js. So once again, that's something sort of experimental, but I strongly believe that's the future, right? Again, of course, this is not going to replace any of the things above. It will just be an add-on, an addition on top of them, right? But companies, every company knows that, many companies knows that. The more you go to the top, the less likely they are to be familiar with. Yeah? So if, so TDD is an attitude. TDD is about writing the test before the functionality is implemented. You can apply TDD on all the levels. Yeah? So one thing is your attitude towards testing, whether you write first the test or not. Another thing is, technically speaking, how do you test your application? Yeah? All right, so all these things, right? If you go to a job interview and you prove that you know this, for instance, that gives you points. Don't forget that breaking into the market is just a competition between you and other people like you. So you need to do something differently. If you do the same as everybody else, what's your value? Right? So I will strongly recommend you, on top of all the classic stuff we are learning, blah, 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 try to play a bit with something a bit unusual, if you like. Yeah? Backstop is a bit unusual. And it's good, because of course, if you work with algorithms, blah, blah, the company will say, okay, yeah, this is very efficient. But if you work with something like that, their reaction will be like, oh, that's fantastic. Do you remember 2 weeks ago on Friday, we deployed something to production and someone broke the app and no one realized because we have really good text coverage, but we were unable to identify the problem. Oh, that would be fantastic. We really want you as part of the team, right? So in other words, do something different, guys, if you want to get a job. And this is a good example. And play with Cypress. It's really good, seriously, really, really good. All right. One more thing. I almost forgot that. Actually, I should have mentioned that before. But anyway, I'll do that now. When talking mainly about unit testing, we... so this is our testing and everything, right? And it works fine. How do we know if all the lines, what was the test coverage essentially? Are we covering all the scenarios with this list of tests? How do we know that? Long story short, we don't know. visually speaking, I'm pretty confident because my function is trivial, right? I can visually see that all the lines are covered. But as soon as things start getting a bit more complicated, it will be impossible to visually speaking evaluate if my test coverage is good or not. So how do we solve that problem? Thankfully, there is something very sexy called Istanbul. Istanbul.js. This is arguably my favorite tool ever. With Istanbul, you can get a report that will tell you your test coverage. It's a very visual way to see if you are doing it right or wrong. And there is some visual reports. Imagine this is your code. It's telling you how many times each line is tested. Yeah? So that's a really, really good tool. And it integrates with many different systems, right? So that's a fantastic tool. And thankfully, Istanbul is part of React App. So we can benefit from it at zero effort. How we do that? When we run the test, let me show you. You remember we type npm run test, right? So now, if you pass an argument, be careful because people get confused with that. You type 2 dashes, space, another 2 dashes, and then you pass a property that, if I remember correctly, is coverage. That's the syntax. If you type that, it will run the test as usual, but hopefully it will show you the table with the test coverage. Here you go. You see? That's fantastic. That's the best thing I've seen in my life, right? And you know, I mean, I understand that you may not see the value. Okay, test coverage 100%. That means that every single line, everything is absolutely tested. Fantastic. Let's do a test. Let's remove one of the scenarios, right? So back to my test. Imagine that by accident, I remove the happy path. You remember the happy path? Where we check if everything was okay. Look what happened now. You see? And cover line number 5. So that line is not tested. And because it's not tested, it means if the code goes there and it fails, if I do something weird, buy on deep web or get credit card from user, no one is testing that line, right? The test still passed, you see, but the test still passed because I'm not testing the line. So once we add the test, we'll see 2 immediate consequences. First of all, test coverage will be back to 100%, and then the last test will fail. Correct, yeah? Because we did something dodgy here. So once again, that's Istanbul. Further on, you know that at the moment you do commit and push and everything. Some companies, and I love companies doing that, they have an automatic mechanism in place that something like you push your code, and when you push the code, it goes to the cloud, something called continuous integration, where we run the test in the cloud and everything. And one of the steps is to check the test coverage. If you added a new component and the test coverage is below a given threshold, for instance, 80%, if less than 80% of the lines of code of your component are not tested, so if more than 20% of the lines are not tested, then the system in the cloud will reject your changes. You won't be able to send the changes to Heroku, for instance. Yeah, that's great. Because if someone is sending something random without any testing coverage, we'll have a mechanism to prevent that from going live. Any questions? No? All right, so that was pretty much it, guys. Thank you for watching.